This is a series focusing on resistance training, steady state, recovery, HIIT workouts, and flexibility in that order. The reason I wanted to put on this series is to have a 4-part consecutive series of what I believe to be the most integral for your longevity movements and workout styles to support longevity, reduce risk of chronic disease, and overall live a healthier, more energized, and full, bountiful life. In last week's episode, if you haven't listened to that already, we went over what I believe is the base and the number one in the hierarchy of movement series, which was resistance training. And we focused a lot on metabolic health, fat loss, my personal testimony as far as what I went through in college, and really the first physical change in my body that I saw that might surprise you. So definitely check that out. And like I mentioned before, I'm not going to do a full episode on steady state cardio, which is that zone 2, nice fat loss, non-muscle loss movement. I have a couple of episodes on that already, so feel free to head back, look at those, but I would consider that that would be probably, if I were to do a full episode on that again, it would be next week's episode. But coming in at number 2 for the hierarchy of movement series, as you saw in the title of today's episode, it's recovery. I want to preface this episode by saying it's recovery from that resistance training, from workouts, from your fitness. It's not simply, oh, well, she said sleep. It's number 2. I'm sleeping all the time. I'm not moving. I'm not stressing my body. It's productive recovery. Obviously, we need sleep for a trillion reasons. This is the emphasis on overall recovery, not just sleep. We are going to be speaking on sleep. We're going to be talking about really the spectrum of recovery and what you can use and do, what to prioritize, all the way from the most minimal, zero equipment, zero nothing. You can do it right now for free. And then the most maximal ways to recover. And this is really just based on where you are right now with your fitness. Like I mentioned last week, resistance training, numero uno, for so many reasons. Go back, listen to that episode. But when you are getting into resistance training, getting into fitness, it is once you start to see results, it can become addicting. And we oftentimes think more is more. It is the same with anything else, everything in moderation, and sometimes quote unquote less is more. I don't mean less as in if you already have like a really great foundation for your wellness, you feel really good, you feel like your muscles are getting repaired and you're reaping the benefits of your workouts. This is simply to give you information and knowledge to support what clearly is already working for you. If you are getting into resistance training, or if you are someone who has a good program going, but you're not necessarily seeing the results physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically that you want, a lot of times it can be brought back to recovery. Now, quick testimonial before we get into today's episode. I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that I was doing 75-day hard. I've done we've covered this plenty. I did the 75-day hard challenge, and then on day, I can't even remember, maybe day 56 or 57, I stopped to go to a bachelor party. It was one of my best girlfriends. I've known her basically my whole life, and I wanted to have a good time. I feel really great about it. I was never hungover. Not that would have been a bad thing, but I just felt really good leaving, and my body, even though I wasn't doing these crazy workouts, I wasn't doing like intense 2-a-days during the 75-day hard, it was simply just nice to take a little bit more of that ownership back. I didn't really realize how my body didn't really change during 75-day hard. That was not my initial goal. But I was telling Jason the other day that after even having 2 days of either just walking or one full rest day. Like I didn't do much of anything. I think I got 2,000 steps that day. And it just so happened that I slept until maybe 6:30. We had a slow morning of coffee, which we hadn't done in a while. And I just didn't go to the gym before before I went to work that day. And then when we got home, I think we walked for 20 minutes and we really just wanted to spend time with each other. Hadn't seen each other really much. And I honestly was saying to Jason, I was like, I feel so good right now. I don't feel weak. I don't feel puny. I don't feel overexerted. I don't feel lazy. It just felt like appropriate recovery. Not saying that I didn't enjoy 75 Day Hard. I did. It was fine. It was good. It was what it was. I'm happy that I stopped when I did, because at that point I was like, I didn't really take myself so seriously. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, we're still active. We've been still working out every single day, like I always have. Not always working out every single day, but not necessarily putting the mental energy into working out twice a day. Okay, all of that to say, I just feel better. And I think most people feel better when you do have that productive recovery. I feel good when you have that productive recovery. I felt less fluffy. And Jason said the same thing. He felt immediately slightly leaner after having one full day off and then maybe one stretch walk day. But 2 recovery days, and you simply start to feel a little bit of, it honestly feels like all of the results of those workouts started to kick in 2 days after we took a couple days off. And that was simply because a little less inflammation, we were sleeping deep, and our muscles were really repairing at that time. Hormones were being our hormone production was being fostered as we slept and recovered, and just lowering some of those stress hormones that sometimes when overloaded can cause a bit of water retention. We've talked about this before. And let's get into some of the recovery bits that I wanted to get into today. One, when it comes to recovery, it does not need to be in my eyes, unless you are a super, super athlete, or your workouts when you do work out are really intense. Maybe you can only, whatever your reasoning is. In my eyes, I don't necessarily think recovery needs to be overthought. I think sometimes we think recovery as in just lay on the couch and eat a whole jar of Pringles like I did yesterday. Not real Pringles. They were quote unquote healthy kind, but sometimes you just need those days. I was sitting in these, I'm not going to tangent. I shan't tangent. And the recovery doesn't necessarily need to be overthought, but it does need to be prioritized. The reason why we so often think, we don't, I need to work out every single day. I agree. You do need to move your body every single day. However, your body does need the time to catch back up with itself, not necessarily catch up on sleep, but it needs to catch up with the repair. So if you are, it's like, oh my God, huge thunder. I love it so much. Let's say, Jason's a pilot. So if he were to fly a plane every single day and there was no maintenance work getting done, by the end of that week, you would definitely need to check that plane. It would definitely have some things done with it. So it needs to go to the hangar. It needs to be checked, fixed, adjusted. Whatever's broken needs to be fixed. Obviously, they do this before every flight. This is not a real thing, but you can imagine after so much work, the body needs to go into a hangar, if you will, and it needs to be taken out of commission until it's repaired. One of the benefits of getting good rest time, let's say you're prioritizing 3 days a week of resistance training with weights. Maybe you're walking, 4 or 5 times per week, just, 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, whatever it is. You have like a pretty general, good, solid workout routine. There was a study that was published in the, I'm going to say Annals. It looks like Annals with 2 N's, but it's not. The Annals of Internal Medicine found that individuals who slept 5.5 hours a night over a 2-week period lost 55% less fat compared to those who slept for 8.5 hours per night, despite both groups following the same caloric intake. This suggests that insufficient sleep can significantly impair fat loss efforts. And you might be thinking, wow, are we really burning fat throughout the night? Well, it's even deeper than that. You are not just burning fat throughout the night directly, but you are indirectly burning fat because your muscles are repairing themselves. It takes energy from your body. We talked about this last episode. It takes energy and calories for your body to repair the tears and the micro tears and the micro traumas from that workout. And you need to utilize your inner, what is the word I'm looking for? You're using your fuel from the inside to fuel the energy that's needed to recover, to repair. And you build while you're repairing those muscles, which burns fat. So it's not just you sleep, nothing else happens, but you just burn fat. It's that the muscles that are being created and cared for during your rest state will subsequently burn fat. We know muscle is a natural fat burner. Creating more muscle while you sleep, in turn, burns more fat. So it may not be that you're necessarily even burning fat all throughout the night, but when you repair, number one, muscle, which is incredible for your metabolic health, then throughout the day, you're going to be burning more fat. It's just generally going to help your metabolism burn fat throughout the day. So just remember that sleep equals repair. That's just one statistic, one fact. When it comes to muscle recovery, the research in the Journal of Sports Sciences shows that sleep plays a critical role in muscle recovery. During deep sleep, which you're not getting deep sleep all throughout the night, it's maybe a couple hours, maybe less, maybe more. During deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, which is essential for muscle repair and growth. A review of various studies found that athletes who slept less than 6 hours per night experienced a 60% reduction in muscle protein synthesis, meaning muscle repair, come together, compared to those who had 8 hours of sleep a night, indicating poorer muscle recovery with insufficient sleep. Again, it's not like these are accidental numbers. These are large numbers. It's if it were saying, 5 to 10, even up to 15%, you could think, oh, there's some variables, maybe some human error, whatever it was, maybe someone had alcohol that night. But when it comes to numbers like 55% and 60%, they're majority percent. Majority of people essentially have better muscle recovery, which leads to better fat loss. And that in turn all comes to a better, healthier metabolic rate. Of course, we want to keep a certain amount of fat in us, especially this is a podcast focusing on women, majority. And I mean, this is for men as well, but I'm someone who would like to keep a little bit of fat on my body to make sure that my hormones stay happy. I'm not going into a scarcity set, cortisol raising issue. There was a time I remember when I was working at a fitness studio, and I have so many memories of this fitness studio. Not all of them were like perfect and happy, but I learned, I would never take it away because I learned so much about others, about myself, about how the way I operate, how I react, and grew so much from it. But I used to work in Charleston at a fitness studio, and it's amazing. And I would still go back when I go visit. And there was a period of time where, the instructors would teach 5 a.m. classes, 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes more. We would teach these 5 a.m. classes, meaning wake up around 3:30, leave the house by 4, get into the room by 4:30, class starts at 5. All of this was great. You're starting your day with movement, but your body's not necessarily ready to go to sleep fully. And I could try as I may to sleep throughout the night. But, I had roommates who had lives and who wanted to go to bed at a normal time. And I would just get so in my head and overthink and not be able to sleep. And then it would just lead to so much anxiety. And I remember that was a period of time when not necessarily thinking about, it wasn't necessarily, oh, I'm trying to lose a bunch of fat or weight. It was when I wasn't sleeping, my anxiety was so high, my cravings were crazy, and I could tell that my muscles, my muscles weren't necessarily growing. I was staying at this non-progressive plateau. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening to this have gone through their own version of a plateau. And it's so frustrating, especially working out so often, being so what I considered super fit, but my skin was going insane. I had these, I was having UTI after UTI after UTI, and not for the reasons you would think, and just lots of issues happening. And again, I am not blaming the job. It's just what came with that territory for that period of time. When I left that role, things started to change. I noticed more definition in like my obliques. Maybe my butt wasn't as perky, but I noticed I wasn't having as many back issues because my glutes weren't as tight. There was certain recovery that was happening just by, thank you COVID, just by having more quality sleep. I was stressed for other reasons. Like I didn't really have much of an income coming in at the time, other stressors, but that's life. There are going to be stressors. But that rest and recovery, I noticed I was craving healthier foods. I wanted less sugar. I was sleeping more, and my anxiety started to slowly lower. That's something I wanted to touch on next. One of the benefits of recovery, and we're starting with sleep. I know we're hitting it hard with sleep right now. We're going to get into some other physical forms. I know sleep seems passive. It is very physical and proactive. We're going to get into some more active forms of recovery, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. Something that I know a lot of listeners of Hotter Than Health are interested in is how hormones can be affected by certain things. And when we think hormones, we think, our sex hormones, which is, is our estrogen and our progesterone and our testosterone. Are these being affected? Is it going to affect my period? Is it going to affect my skin, my cycle? And what we are looking at right now are hormones that we might not necessarily think much of if you're not in like the fitness world, the strength training world, or the more on the science end of those things. When looking at how sleep affects hormones, we're all looking at this in the scope of metabolic health, strength training, recovery, workouts. Sleep supports the regulation and secretion of several different key hormones, and they play a crucial role in various bodily functions, including fat loss and muscle recovery. Some of the most important hormones that we have talked about briefly are growth hormone. You've heard of growth hormone, human growth hormone. You've heard people taking supplements to support human growth hormone, peptides, different things that will increase muscle size. And a lot of people have different views on this, but it is a naturally occurring hormone within our body, and it's supported while we sleep. Human growth hormone is essential for muscle repair, growth, and fat metabolism. You can do your own research more on human growth hormone. This isn't talking about the supplements. This is simply talking about what your body is creating throughout the night. Growth hormone, again, essential for muscle repair, growth, and fat metabolism. See how these things always come together as one: muscle, growth, and repair, fat metabolism. Then there is the sleep correlation with growth hormone. The majority of growth hormone is released during deep sleep, stages 3 and 4 of non-REM sleep. Insufficient sleep can significantly reduce the secretion or growth of can significantly reduce the secretion of growth hormone, impairing muscle recovery and growth. Let's zoom out on that really quick and just go through when we say, oh yeah, well I get, 8 hours of sleep at night. I sleep great. I feel awesome. but I'm not seeing the results that I want in my workouts. Hear this time and 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 time again. And that was the number one thing I heard from women as a personal trainer. Doing X, doing Y, not getting Z. What are we solving for here? When it says growth hormone is released during deep sleep, stages 3 or 4 of non-REM sleep. If you are not able to tap into stages 3 or 4, deep sleep during sleep, you will not likely see the recovery / progress in your physical body composition that you may want. Here are some reasons why you may not be tapping into that stage 3 or 4 of deep sleep. You can go back and listen to the energy drink episode that we did 2 episodes ago, talking all about half-life of caffeine. You can analyze what your caffeine structure is throughout the day. Is that impacting the way you sleep? Because even if you feel tired at the end of the day and you fall asleep really quickly, and maybe you feel like you stay asleep, unless you're, and I'm not saying everyone go out and buy an Oura ring. I don't wear any wearable technology at all. I simply just go based on my body, but there are ways. A lot of people can track and say, oh, I felt like I slept great. Sometimes Jason wakes up and he's like, dude, I time warped. I felt like I slept all night long really, really well, but my watch is telling me that I didn't get really much deep sleep at all. Is it caffeine? Are you potentially having either too much or too late in the day? And even if you only have a cup a day, let's take a look at that. Is alcohol involved? Are you having any alcohol even 2 to 3 hours before you sleep? Is it more than 1 drink? If so, expect less deep sleep. This is not me saying like, oh, don't drink. I'm not like, look, I'm just bringing the news to you. Expect less deep sleep, interrupted deep sleep or none, when you would consume alcohol really in any level. Those are 2 things to consider. Also, the amount of time that you are in scrolling on social media. So this is, again, I did it last night. Like, I slept at the house alone, and I was definitely like wanting to keep my phone next to me because I was in the house alone. I was like, okay, usually I sleep with it outside of the room, but when I'm alone, I definitely bring it in. Just, extra level of safety. And I noticed if I'm scrolling throughout the night or right up until I leave or I go to bed, I have to at least read a couple pages because my eyes and my brain is just so stimulated. That always affects my deep sleep, and I can tell in the morning. The next hormone that it affects is cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. This is not a bad hormone. It gets villainized all the time, but it does regulate a wide range of processes, including metabolism and the immune response. Cortisol levels, they naturally decrease during sleep, and they are at their highest when you wake up in the morning. This allows your body to really recover and repair its tissues. So if you are finding yourself not sleeping well, maybe once a week, that's no big deal. A couple times a week, no big deal probably. Chronic sleep deprivation can lead to elevated cortisol levels, so higher stress hormones, which can increase fat storage, especially in the especially abdominal fat, and it can impair muscle recovery. Knowing that higher stress equals potentially lower recovery rates. So if you aren't giving your body and allowing it to prioritize the muscle recovery, then that's going to be one of the effects of the higher cortisol levels. We've got 3 more. Bear with me here. And then we'll get into some physical bits that we can use to specifically recover specific parts of our body. There's then leptin and grhelin. We talked about this. We used to talk about this a lot more on the podcast, but leptin and grhelin are the hormones that regulate hunger and satiety. Leptin signals to your brain that it's full, that it's received enough, whereas grhelin, which kind of sounds like a gremlin, it stimulates your appetite saying, I'm hungry. When you don't sleep well, the leptin levels and the grhelin levels increase, leading to increased hunger, increased appetite, which if you're feeling like, if you're about to be on your period, or if you feel like you are so exhausted, all you want is like bagels or bread or sugary things, oftentimes it's not a physical need from your body, but it is something that is being told to you by those two hormones, leptin and grhelin. So getting good sleep, you will probably find that your blood sugar is a little more balanced the next day. It's easier to regulate your energy and your cravings. That brings me to the next point, which is insulin. And again, insulin is crucial for regulating blood sugar levels and putting like glucose sugar into the cells. When you have poor sleep, it can lead to insulin resistance. So if your body is resisting insulin, which helps regulate blood sugar, then it can contribute to weight gain, fat accumulation, cravings. And one of the things that I notice immediately if I didn't get good sleep or if I have had too much sugar throughout the day, especially early in the morning, the first thing that I notice is I'm a toddler. I'm a toddler and I'm crashing and I'm craving and I'm hangry. I'm not fun to be around. Insulin sensitivity can definitely be something to look more into. And again, insulin sensitivity is that precursor towards the conversation of type 2 diabetes. What are we looking at throughout the day that we are doing that we could adjust to support our metabolic health? And then there's testosterone. I know there's a lot of conversations going on about testosterone. The Olympics were going on. This is 2 weeks, so thinking in the past, but being in my current situation, there was the whole conversation of testosterone levels in one of the athletes, and that whole conversation and testosterone is a very, I feel almost tiptoed around conversation. Testosterone is important for muscle growth, strength, and recovery for men and women. Men definitely carry a larger amount of testosterone. Women have different levels of testosterone. However, deep sleep and REM sleep, all those stages of sleep, are critical for the production of testosterone. So when you don't sleep well, for men listening, when you feel like, oh, I'll sleep when I'll die, like no recovery, no rest days, if there is that perception, just know that without adequate sleep and recovery, it can lead to affected testosterone levels, which impairs muscle recovery and growth, which is so interesting. I've been having a lot of conversations with girlfriends and hearing different conversations happening on podcasts that I listen to. There are so many women who are working with fertility. There's a lot of struggles going on with women and men trying to get pregnant, and there's so many things involved in it. Even if you do everything perfectly, you're in perfect health, there's nothing glaring, especially, for men. I feel for men right now because there is this culture of saying like men are weak, and I just feel like we need to just say, no, men are strong, like you can do it, like breathe life into them, to be honest, because that's what we need. And when men do work out to a point where they don't recover, that can be detrimental. So it is a challenge to find that balance of proper recovery to make sure that you aren't doing anything catastrophic to your testosterone levels. There are so many things that we can do, and we'll talk about this more in a minute. There's so many things we can do for recovery but then when we overdo them, could potentially go deeper into reducing testosterone levels for men, or even simply increasing them based on imbalances for women. I know that there was a time when my testosterone was like kind of crazy and my skin got really wild, and I never got necessarily to the bottom of it. It was during that really high period of time in my anxiety with sleep not being at its best. I find it very interesting. Do your due diligence, get your good sleep. It's not just going to affect your testosterone, but your insulin, leptin and grhelin, cortisol, growth hormone. These are all the hormones, not all the hormones. These are the main hormones that I thought were significant when dealing with fitness that we needed to cover on this topic. When I said we would get into, the fun physical things for recovery, I mentioned the spectrum. There's a spectrum of minimal recovery. What can you do today? What can you do right now? Free, very low stakes, but important. And then there's the, hey, bougie side. If you are someone who's like really ripping it at the gym, maybe you have some extra money you can throw or resources you can throw. Maybe you have a friend who has these tools and you can share them with them. Honestly, that is not a bad idea. Maybe we should get into like a group share because I have that. Okay, we're going to get into that. Group share. Note to self with gear. Okay. On that spectrum, we'll start with the minimal. Some minimal things you can have in your home, in a closet, in a drawer, a sock drawer, or just nothing. Obviously, there's simply just movement. You can go for a walk. If you're super sore, I can tell you honestly that what you don't want to do is just stay stiff as a board. Movement. I'm not saying you even need to deep stretch because sometimes when you're so incredibly sore, it's trauma. It's like physical pain to touch, so intense. Simply moving your body, making sure that blood is able to go in and out and around, keeping your muscles lubricated, staying hydrated. These are all simple things we can do to ensure that there is malleability in our muscles and we don't get extremely tight. I know the last thing you want to do after a hard workout is move your body more. However, finding some simple ways to just move your body around a little bit it can be super helpful for just getting those muscles from being frozen to softening a little. It's almost like cracking a glow stick. After your workout, you might feel so stiff, maybe even a couple days after your workout, so stiff. But after you crack that glow stick one time, it starts to move and it gets really, really bendy. And once it's in that bendy phase, it feels good. You can play with it. You can fling it around, do whatever with it, move it into shapes. But it does take that. You got to pass that barrier to entry, whether it's going for a light walk, simply just getting someone to massage you, like a friend, rolling on the floor, doing whatever you need to do to simply move. Hydration, of course, if you can get some high quality electrolytes or some salt, lemon in your water, that's amazing. Having a lacrosse ball. I love getting a lacrosse ball and sitting on it with one glute. You can feel it roll over that SI joint, especially if you are having sciatic pain. Oh my God, I'm telling you, I know so many women who are pregnant who have dealt with sciatic pain. It is so painful. And sometimes it feels like you cannot beat it. But if you can sit on a lacrosse ball and find that joint over the middle of your butt and let your glute just roll over that lacrosse ball and stay on that really hard pressure point, it's going to be a little painful, but I'm telling you, it will release so much. Keep doing that consistently. Also having a lacrosse ball as you lay down, just in between your shoulder blades, feels amazing. That's something, I'm sure you can text a friend who used to play lacrosse. Hey, will you bring a little lacrosse ball to my house? There are a lot of ways to access those things. I'm pretty sure I stole one from a gym one time. Sorry. There's foam rolling. If you go to a gym, likely there's a foam roller around, not just for your hamstrings, but your IT bands. Get to the side. I'm telling you, it will be challenging to do in the beginning. And then the more and more you do it, the easier it gets. It really does. Getting the glutes, getting the IT bands, which is on the outer thigh. And then just a deep stretch. These are all things that you can do today. You can do right now. You can do it while you're listening. And it is productive. It might feel like, well, it's not a big stretch, so I'm just not going to do it. The compound effect is real. A little bit each day goes a long way. And then the maximalist. On the other side of the spectrum, there is the the bougie items that if you're super into fitness, super into recovery, and you can afford it, maybe you've been saving up for a while, a big Christmas gift, maybe it's something that you can simply borrow from a friend. I have done that before, absolutely. Some of this gear is so expensive, and unless you really have the flexibility to do so, it seems really unapproachable. If you have the opportunity to borrow from a friend, go to your high school or your school and see if there's a way to incorporate any of this into your training, see if you can borrow. People, let me tell you a secret here. People who are into fitness and there's someone who's interested in getting better with their fitness who comes to them and seeking advice, seeking like solicited advice, they are going to do anything they can to help you. They are going to be like, dude, come over, use these boots, come over, use this foam roller. Oh my God, you got to check this out. Oh, here's this YouTube. Find people to have conversations with who you admire, you look up to, or you just know is doing something different. And they will come to you with so much grace and happiness and say, oh my gosh, man, this is what, like, there's going to be so much empathy there too. There's likely going to be an injury that they've gone through. There's going to be a something they had to overcome or learn, or something that someone taught them. People are likely not going to be stingy with their wisdom. Here's some maximalist things. That was a bit of a tangent. I'm sorry. Ice bath. Again, not expensive. You can get a thing of ice for a couple bucks, maybe get 2 or 3, have a friend over, fill up a bathtub, fill up a bucket, a clean trash can, and sit in there, soak in there for 1 or 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. I mean, it's tough, and different ice baths are at different temperatures. You can go to saunas. There's a place that a friend of mine from high school just opened up called, here I go, trying to be nice and I'm butchering it, Sauna Therapy, Sauna House, something like that in Cotswold if you're in Charlotte. It's got cold plunge and group like warming chairs, and it's just beautiful. It's above Y2 Yoga in Cotswold. There's ice baths. There is the sauna blanket. I have the higher dose infrared sauna blanket, and when I get in that thing, typically I don't use it during the summer because it's just hot here, but I'll use it, I'll lay in it, and afterwards I feel so good. I mean, I feel like I'm going to pass out for like 6 minutes, but after that, you just feel amazing. I love to use it like if I'm feeling bloated before my period. I love to do it after an intense workout. At night, watch a show, lay on the ground. Again, it's not cheap. This product is not cheap, and I've brought it over to friends' houses. We've all used it. Obviously, we wipe it down first. We've all used it, and this is something that I love to share. There's a neighbor that I talked about bringing it over so that they could use it, and she said that she would use it. Look, people want to share. If you live in an apartment complex and you have people that you know and trust with a nice product, like go share and share the joy. There are things like Theraguns, which are handheld guns that you can target specific muscles, and it's basically it's like a warm-up for your muscles. Just with this little gun, you run it over your muscles a bunch of times, and it really just gets your muscles moving without you having to do a whole lot of movement yourself. So I'll just be laying on the couch and rubbing or putting the Theragun on my IT band, and it's great. There is sports massage. There is of course, there's dry needling. If you pulled something, I tweaked my neck a few weeks ago and had to go get dry needled. It was the best. It fixed everything immediately. I can't believe it. I thought it was hocus pocus. It wasn't. It was great. This guy knew exactly what he was doing. Thank you, Matt. And then there's sports massage. We also have a pair of Normatec boots. Jason gifted himself a pair of Normatec boots, which are basic. It's like a arm pressure cuff that you put around your arm, and it goes and tracks your blood pressure and tightens up really tight, but it does that all around your legs, and then it releases, and then it tightens, and then it releases, and it just manufactures that blood flow around your body. Oh, it is amazing. You feel like you're getting a massage. There's attachments you can get. Again, not cheap. And if you can split it with someone, great. If you and your roommate are getting into fitness, great. Then maybe this is something like, hey, if I stick to my fitness goal for 6 months, a year, I'm going to get X, Y, and Z. And you put away $20 a month until that time. That's what you should do. Give yourself the gift of recovery and more wellness. Within this hierarchy of movement series, of course, I wanted to explain there is that hierarchy of recovery. When it comes to recovery, it is sleep, and not just getting the amount of hours, but getting the quality. Remember, like we said in the beginning of this episode, with the statistics, it said for muscle recovery, the Journal of Sports Sciences shows that sleep plays a critical role in muscle recovery. A review of various studies found that athletes who slept less than 6 hours per night experienced a 60% reduction in muscle protein synthesis compared to those who had 8 hours. And then again, the Annals of Internal Medicine found that individuals who slept 5.5 hours per night over a 2-week period lost 55% less fat than those who slept 8.5 hours. We can see that around 8 hours is great. And if you can't prioritize 8 hours, please prioritize the quality. Get off your screen. Oh, but Eliza, the only way I can fall asleep at night is by scrolling on my screen. I'm sorry. It's the same old song and dance. No, just sometimes you can't have both. You can do that sometimes and get away with it. But if you're struggling with your sleep and you need to prioritize the quality, get a decent book. You're like, oh, but I don't like reading. Well, then get a deck of cards and play solitaire. Talk to someone, pray, write in a journal. There's a trillion things you could do. Or just honestly, this is novel. You could just lay there and then just do some breathing, deep breathing. Again, here we are overthinking the simplest thing in the world. Like, we were born to sleep. We sleep a third of our life. Let's make it good. And then, so hierarchy is sleep, and that is going to support the growth hormone, cortisol, leptin, grhelin, insulin, testosterone, all really, really important for the production of muscle synthesis and fat loss. Then, of course, we simply have moving around, stretching, hydrating. I hope that this has been an informative episode. I loved putting this episode on and out. It is something that reminds me every day to make sure that I am stretching and getting the recovery in that I need. And speaking of recovery, if you are someone who is incorporating protein into your recovery, which you definitely should be, protein is a really great way for the building blocks of muscles within your body. And the best protein that I know to be out there is the complete protein, I love chocolate and vanilla, by Organifi. You can check out any of their products. I start my day with their greens powder every single day. Sometimes I'll put the collagen in oatmeal. I'll put it in grits if I'm feeling southern. I will put it in a smoothie. And sometimes I'll just mix it in with my coffee. But Organifi is offering 20% off to all Hotter Than Health listeners. You can check the link in the show notes to check out Organifi. Again, it is Organifi.com/HTH for 20% off. Organifi, thank you so much for sponsoring today's episode. Next week, you will be hearing from me about HIIT, one of our faves, just one of our faves, the explosive, the exciting HIIT workouts. But this is the series, the 4-part series, The Hierarchy of Movement, and we will talk to you next Thursday.
Bye.